Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Metaphys Yugioh deck profile for May 2024. This is a deck that I actually picked up with the deck collection a while back. I've actually been wanting to rebuild Metaphys for a good while, so happy that there was a pretty much full core in the collection that I picked up for me to update the deck. The deck focuses on being able to utilize the banish effects of the Metaphys monsters to either set up a pretty good board with your big boss monsters or just have additional effects depending on the face-up spell or traps that revolve around the banish playstyle of the Metaphys monsters on the field as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the 3-ofs for the Metaphys monsters. We're running 3 copies of Metaphys Ragnarok. If it's normal or special summon, you can banish the top 3 cards of your deck. If you do, this card gains 300 attack for each Metaphys card banished by this effect. And when it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon 1 level 5 or higher Metaphys monster from your deck, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. You can only use each effect of Ragnarok once per turn, but the banish effect means you could potentially hit some other Metaphys monsters to then use during the next standby phase off of Ragnarok, having the attack boost, but a 3-of banish definitely has the potential to hit. I would compare it to the Foxy Search for Salmon Grates, but also just being able to have a special summon effect, having this card gain in its attack, on top of also being able to, hit over some battle damage cards as well, with the attack gain for the 300 for each Metaphys card, which we do run a good number of different Metaphys cards in the deck to do so. We're also running 3 copies of Metaphys Tyrant Dragon. If it's special summoned by the effect of a Metaphys monster, it's unaffected by trap effects. Also, if it attacks a monster, it can make a second attack in a row. And if this card's banished during the standby phase of the next turn, you can shuffle this banished card into the deck to special summon 1 Metaphys monster from your hand, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. So your Tyrant Dragon also can help to set up more cards in the field, having a 2900 attack point monster that can also swing for 2 attacks if it swings into a monster. If it was special summoned by the effect of a Metaphys monster, so it can be summoned off of the Ragnarok card or just its own card effect, you have more setup, but the big play comes into the special summon option for your Tyrant Dragon to grab other of your Metaphys monsters onto the field. And also 3 copies of Metaphys Daedalus. If it's special summoned by the effect of a Metaphys monster, you can banish all other face-up special summon monsters on the field. If this card's banished during the standby phase of the next turn, you can shuffle this banished card into the deck to banish 1 Metaphys card from your deck, except for Daedalus. So the big thing to remember with the Metaphys monsters as well is that all this resolves during the standby phase for the card as well of the next turn. So you'll have to remember the banish effect during the standby phase for the next Metaphys monster that you banish. You can't activate the same effect during that turn if it says during the standby phase of the next turn for this card, if this card was banished during that specific standby phase. So you want to do as much as you can before the next standby phase of the turn comes around. And also 3 copies of Metaphys Nephthys for the last of the 3-ofs for the Metaphys cards. If it's special summoned by the effect of a Metaphys monster, you can banish all set spell or traps on the field. So you have, Daedalus, which can take care of the monsters, and then Nephthys, which can take care of the set spell or traps on the field. So it gets around your potential face-up Metaphys spell or traps, because the good majority of them will be face-up on the field, by just getting rid of these set ones. And then being able to use this card during the standby phase of the next turn. It was banished. You can shuffle this banished card into the deck to add 1 Metaphys card from your deck to your hand, except for Nephthys. So having search power for the mentioned spell or traps as well, on top of the method of this card being able to get rid of these set ones on the field, is another added help. And then also the 2 copies of Metaphys Decoy Dragon. Being the only pendulum monster in the deck, it's not used for its pendulum summon ability, since it's the only pendulum monster we run. It's used more for its pendulum scale effect of when your monster is targeted for an attack, you can target one of your Metaphys monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Banish this card if you do special summon that monster in attack position. So it was a Metaphys card effect, so you can then summon out that monster and then use the effect of it since it was special summoned by a Metaphys card. And when your monster is targeted for an attack, you can target one of your Metaphys monsters that banished in your graveyard. Banish this card if you do special summon that monster in attack position, and during the standby phase of the next turn, after this card is banished, you can special summon this banished card, giving you that resource back on the field to use, and that's where the name of Metaphys Decoy Dragon comes down to, being very similar to the original Decoy Dragon as just a way to get out your bigger worm Metaphys monsters. And then also the one Metaphys Executor. It's more of a gimmicky card, so if you didn't want to run this, the one card I don't have in the deck, just because I didn't have the card, is Metaphys Dimension. So you can either take out the Executor for the Dimension, or the other one-of trap that I'm running in the deck instead for this spot. And then also 3 copies of Aloof Lupine. When it's normal summon, you can banish one monster from your hand to banish one monster from your deck with the same type as that monster. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card's owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target one of your banished monsters and add to your hand, giving you back search back power, but just being able to banish a monster from your hand to then banish an additional monster gives you 2 Metaphys monsters to then use during the standby phase of the next turn. So then you'll have a 2-card setup during your opponent's next turn thanks to Aloof Lupine. More of a direct target banish, unlike Metaphys Ragnarok, which does banish 3, but this one has a more specific way to do so. And then also 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. This is the hand trap of choice in the deck because some builds do like to run the Dimensional Fisher or Macros Cosmos lineup, which I would as well if I had the playsets to use. So you just want a hand trap that you just have to discard in case, any card that would be sent to the grave would be banished instead. Kind of makes some of your other hand traps that you may want to potentially use useless in the deck. Ash Blossom just has to be discarded, so it can be, discarded and banished for you to still be able to use it. For the spells, I run 3 copies of Asim Metaphys, with this card being a continuous spell. Once per turn, you can banish one Metaphys card from your hand. If you do, draw 1 card. And once per turn, if your Metaphys card in its owner's possession is banished, applies this effect depending on whose turn it is. If it was your turn, all monsters on the field lose 500 attack and defense except for Metaphys monsters, so weakening your opponent's monsters. Or on your opponent's turn, you can change the battle position of all monsters on the field except for Metaphys monsters, giving you more of a, disruption of your opponent's cards as long as they aren't link monsters to then switch their battle phase. But I would say the lowering of the attack and the main play of this card is just to, sift through the deck for more and more cards for you to use while banishing your own Metaphys monsters. I also run 2 copies of Metaphys Factor. Each turn, 1 level 5 or higher Metaphys monster you normal summon can be summoned without attributing, just being able to get out your bigger monsters on the field just with a normal summon thanks to this field spell. And also you banish it during the end phases of the next turn, but still, then you can make use of the standby phase effect of those Metaphys monsters that you banished. And also 3 copies of World Legacy Clash. Now, the thing about this card is if you have Dimensional Fisher, you can run it instead for this spot in the deck. Since this card banishes a monster you control to the end phase of this turn, then target one face a monster your opponent controls. That target loses attack and defense equal to the original attack and defense of that banished monster. So you'll get the monster back, which is why I feel Dimensional Fisher would be a better choice here. It's just more of a budget-friendly option to also be able to weaken your opponent's monsters. And then also the 1 copy of Gold Sarcophagus, the 1 Terraforming, and the 1 Call by the Grave, and the 1 Triple Tactics talent for the rest of the spell lineup, having a field spell search with Terraforming and just more of a banish setup thanks to Gold Sarcophagus. For the traps, I run 3 copies of Metaphys Ascension. You discard 1 Metaphys card to draw 1 card, then you can banish 1 Metaphys monster from your deck. If this card is banished, you can add 1 Metaphys card from your deck to your hand, except for Metaphys Ascension. So if this card is also potentially banished off of Ragnarok, you'll have an additional search option for the Metaphys card to add to your hand, except for Ascension, but still very, very useful for that potential banish setup. And then if you have one in your hand, you can set that to then use the next turn. And also 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Once again, another card that's not really affected by the banish potential of the deck. And lastly, the 1 Skill Drain, which if you have Metaphys Dimension, which is a continuous trap that you can run on the deck for additional banish setup, you can replace the Skill Drain for that 1 card. And then for the extra deck, you don't really go into it much, but you just have some generic options to rely on. So the 1 Nightmare Cerberus, the 1 Barricade Board Blocker, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Lena the Light Charmer, the 1 Hit Potion Engine, and the 1 Donner Dagger for hire. For when we can use it for the Aloof Lupine summon, having a beast type monster, and then the rest of our monsters being worm monsters, with our higher link monsters being the 1 Nightmare Unicorn, the 1 Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, 1 Apollosa, the 1 Access Code Talker, and the 1 Underworld Goddess for our link lineup, with our Xyz monsters being the 1 Abyss Dweller, the 1 number 41 Maguska, the 1 Zeus, and the 1 Typhoon, with the most common level in the deck being our Metaphys Ragnarok and our Aloof Lupine at level 4 monsters. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I said, Aloof Lupine really does help to set up a good majority of them, being able just to have that one additional monster in our hand to banish, and then depending on our opponent's board presence, we can either go for cards like Daedalus from the deck or Metaphys, since they are the same attribute as the monster that we banished from the hand as well. And then on the next following turn, we have the added options during the standby phase to shuffle this banish card into the deck to banish one Metaphys card from your deck, except for Daedalus. So then, depending on what we banish off of Daedalus, it could be another potential card to banish later on. And then being able to special summon a Metaphys monster from your hand off of Tyrant Dragon, giving us the special summon option for our Metaphys monster that may have been special summoned off of the effect of our other Metaphys card, to then just continue more and more resources to then use to banish all cards on the field, since it was special summoned. So we can use the Tyrant Dragon to either grab Metaphys or the other Daedalus, depending on which one we summon out from our hand, to then take more of the resources away from our opponents. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.